Today we're going to talk about Samuel and his sons. And the first thing we're going to look at is the call of Samuel. Well, first, now you should, at the end of the lesson, you should be able to narrate the call of Samuel and describe the behavior of Samuel's children. Also relate the behavior of Samuel's sons to today's youth. Identify ways parents can fulfill their parental obligations. And lastly, derive moral lessons from the story. As simple as that. Let's continue. The parental responsibility of Samuel. We can find the call of Samuel in the book of 1 Samuel chapter 3, verse 2 to 18. And I think that was what Akodo was reading for the class. So without wasting my time, let's look at how Samuel came into the scene. Someone please mute yourself. Rosamond, Mama, mute yourself. Good. Let's continue. Now, we from the story of Eli died, and his two sons also died. Don't forget, I told you how Samuel came into the scene. Samuel's mother was barren, had no child, went to the Lord's house to pray, and the Lord answered her prayer. So when she gave birth to Samuel, and Samuel grew up at the age of 7, he sent Samuel to the temple of Shiloh, where he dedicated him to the service of God. So Samuel lived his life in the house of the Lord. And in the house of God, he served as an apprentice, learning from Eli. Now, when Eli, before he died, God appeared to Samuel when Samuel was young and revealed himself to him. And that is where God called him and told him that he would use him as what? A prophet, and he'll become the priest of the people of Israel. Now let's look at the notes. Now the boy Samuel ministered before the Lord under Eli. In those days, the word of the Lord was rare. There were not many visions. When we say the word of the Lord was rare, mean that God has stopped speaking directly to men, including Eli. Let's move on. One night, Eli, whose eyes was becoming so weak that he could not barely see, was lying down in his usual place. The lamp of the Lord had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was. Then the Lord called Samuel. Samuel answered, "Here I am." And he ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." But Eli said, "I did not call. Go back and lie down." So he went and lay down. Again, the Lord called Samuel, and Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." "My son," Eli said, "I did not call you. Go back and lie down." Now, Samuel did not yet know the Lord. The word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. The Lord called Samuel a third time, and Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." Then Eli realized that the Lord was calling the boy. So Eli told Samuel, "Go and lie down, and if he calls you, say, 'Speak, Lord, for thy servant is listening.'" Speak, Lord, for thy servant is listening. Take notice of that. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. So Eli told Samuel, "Go and lie down, and if he calls you, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place. The Lord came and stood there, calling us at the other times, Samuel, Samuel. Then Samuel replied, in other words, said, speak, for your servant is listening. And the Lord said to Samuel, see, I'm about to do something in Israel that will make the ears of everyone who hears of it tingle. So pay attention to what God told Samuel. At that time, I'll carry out against Eli everything I spoke against his family from beginning to the end. Now listen carefully. God sent a prophet. In our previous lesson, God sent a prophet to warn Eli about the behavior of his sons. But Eli just rebuked them with words and did not take any actions to correct their mistakes. So what happened? During the war, Eli died and lost his two sons. And even the wife of Phinehas also died after giving birth to her child and named him Ichabod. So right after the death of right after the death of Eli, God called Samuel. And now Samuel became the new priest and also the prophets of the people. Let's continue. For I told him that I will judge his family forever because of the sins he knew about. His sons made themselves contemptible. If you say someone makes himself contemptible, someone who they disregarded everything that that concerns God and also the temple. And he failed to restrain them. So this is what's the sin of Eli. Eli was not able to restrain his children from committing evil. And because of that, the punishment God gave him was that terrible death of his children, including himself and the wife of his sons. Now, it is not only Eli who died during this period. Most of the Israelites who were at war also died, all because of Eli's sons' behavior. This gives us understanding that the behavior of a child in a family can bring a blessing or curses. So if your parents are doing their best to give you good education, they are doing their best to give you good training so that you grow up to become a responsible person in the future, but you fail to listen to your parents, you are bringing curses on yourself as well as on your parents. So it's a great lesson you have to learn that when your parents have asked you or any elderly person has advised you about certain things in life and tries to restrain you from them, be an obedient child and listen. Because Eli failed to train his children, at the end of the day, Israel as a nation faced a fatal disaster. Let's continue. Therefore, I swore to the house of Eli, the guilt of Eli's house will never be atoned for by any sacrifice or offering. Did you hear that? God is saying that he has sworn that no sacrifice will be made. No sacrifice will be made that will let God change his mind of what he will be doing to the house of Eli. Meaning that Eli's son's forgiveness cannot be forgiven. That was what, and Eli knew that. So Eli told his children that when a man sins against his fellow, God can intercede for him. But when man sins against God, who is going to intercede for that man? So the sins of Eli's sons was so great that God said no prayer of forgiveness or no sacrifice of forgiveness will change the punishment God is going to bring on them. Just imagine. There are certain things we do, we think we are we have grown ups in the house. Parents address problems that we are bringing to the house, and we took offense of them. When the advisor is about we not going into relationships, including myself, I've been telling you, you as students going to relationships is just waste of time. Some of you will not listen. You will think the advice we are giving you is just to frustrate you. But I have seen, and your parents have also seen, a lot of young kids as we were growing up who did not listen to their parents and ended up becoming what? Pregnant, especially the girls. And the boys also are not able to complete school. So there are certain advice we give to you as young people as you are growing up, and we expect you to take them into consideration. When you grow up obeying your children, obeying your parents, and doing and following their instructions, you'll be a proud person in the future, because they are going to restrain you from so many serious mistakes that you could have committed, and those mistakes could have ended what? Your life. So be glad when you have somebody in your life who advises you to do the will of God and to live a good moral life. That person should be a role model. That person should be your friend. Let's continue. Samuel lay down until morning and then opened the doors of the house of the Lord. He was afraid to tell Eli the vision, but Eli called him and said, Samuel, my son, Samuel. Samuel answered, Here I am. What was it he said to you? Eli asked. Do not hide it from me. May God deal with you, be it ever so severely, if you hide from me anything he told you. So when the next day came and Samuel woke up, Eli was eager to hear what God told Samuel, because he knew that it was a very long time God had spoken to the people, including himself. So he was eager to listen to hear what God told Samuel. And he knew very well that what God told Samuel definitely will concern him. Let's continue. So Samuel told him everything, hiding nothing from him. Then Eli said, He is the Lord. Let him do what is good in his eyes. Did you listen to Eli's response when after he has asked Samuel what God told him? The scripture is saying that the lesson is telling us that Samuel told him everything, including the punishment God is going to bring to Eli and his sons. That God is not going to accept any sacrifice of their sins, and he's going to punish them, and he's going to cut Eli and his family off completely. Now, after Eli has heard this, he did not stop worshiping the Lord, or he did not speak against God, but rather he said, He is the Lord. Let him do what is good in his eyes. Now, this shows that Eli knew very well that he had failed as a parent. He could not train his children on the path of God. And therefore, the punishment God will give to him, he deserves it. Now, last but not the least, the Lord was with Samuel as he grew up, and he let none of his words fall to the ground. What does it mean? It means that any prophecy that God used Samuel to prophesy, everything that he says comes to pass. And all Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, recognized that Samuel was attested as a prophet of the Lord. So this is the call of Samuel. And I've mentioned to you some of the important things you should take notes. Let's continue. Now, Samuel also grew up and had two children, that is, two sons. They were called Joel and Abijah. And when Samuel was very old and could not carry out some of his duties, which was among his duties was a judge. He was the one who judges issues concerning the people of Israel. When he grew old, he couldn't administer that role, and therefore made his two sons become judges in Israel. Now his two sons, Joel and Abijah, were also priests who carried out duties on his behalf, just like Eli before him did. Joel and Abijah judged in Beersheba. So they were judges in Beersheba. The sons of Samuel did not walk in the ways of their father. Just imagine, some of you have good parents. To be frank with you, you have responsible parents. Samuel was a very responsible parent. But his two sons were so stubborn. They did not listen to their father nor walk in the ways of the Lord. So meaning, the father's legacy that he has lived as a good life, his children did not take their father's what? Lifestyle. They went ahead and did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. Now when we continue, instead, they followed after worldly things. The sons of Samuel followed after worldly things. As judges, they took bribes and perverted justice. Akodo, what is wrong with you? Can't you sit idle? Let's continue. I said, instead, they followed after worldly things. And when we say they followed after worldly things, what comes into your mind? When you say someone is following after worldly things, what are some of the things that shows that this person is following after worldly things? Hand is up, you can talk.
Dressing indecently.
Okay, indecent dressing. Indecent dressing. Okay. Yes, who else? Rosemond, your hand is up.
The love for money.
The love for money. Okay, that is correct. Precious, Senam.
So it means the person is behaving to be in the favor of men, not what God wishes humans to do.
Excellent. Are they perfect?
So fornication.
Fornication. Okay, good. So now all these things shows that somebody is living a worldly what? A worldly life. Now, aside following after worldly things, Samuel's sons also took bribes and perverted justice. When we say someone takes bribe, what does it mean? What does it mean to take bribe? Or what is bribe? Rosemond.
Say,
Mm-hmm.
say, they take things from them. Let me say, for example, money, not to punish them for the evil thing they have done, to make them go scot-free.
They let them go scot-free. Okay. Okay. Who else? Any addition? Any addition? Okay. And we also said, and they perverted justice. When someone perverts justice, what does it mean? Rosemond. Precious, your hand is up.
Hand is not up.
Precious hand is up. When we say someone perverts justice, what does it mean? All right, let's continue. Now, taking bribe from the people, for instance, when yes, Mama, your hand is up.
Say.
Yes.
Said they hide the truth.
Excellent. They hide the truth, and they also take bribe. For instance, when a case is brought to them and the innocent person is poor but has no money, they will judge the case in favor of the rich and take money from the rich and would imprison the poor person. You see how evil that was. Now let's continue. In reaction to the irresponsible behavior of the children of Samuel, all the elders of Israel got together and went to Samuel. They reminded him of how he had become old and how he had made his two sons priests over the people. Then they told him how his children were not walking in the ways of their father, how they took bribe and perverted justice. Therefore, they demanded from Samuel to give them a king like all the nations that surrounded them. The request from the elders of Israel for a king, rejecting the kingship of God, displeasing Samuel. He prayed to God, putting the matter before him. What are we talking about here? Now, because of Samuel's son's behavior, the elders of Israel gathered together and they went to Samuel to complain to him that we can no longer stand the behavior of your children. And therefore, we want you to get us a king. Mind you, Israel, as at that time, had never had a king, and God was their king. They didn't have any human king as at that time. So to them, they think the solution to the problem they are facing now in the hands of in the hands of Samuel's children is to get them a king. So if they have a king like other nations, the king will put the nation into what? Into subdue, whereby the king will become the administrator of what? Of the nation. And they wanted to be like other nations. But when this was reported to Samuel, Samuel rejected the idea, because to Samuel, the request for king means they are rejecting God as their king. Someone please mute yourself. Mute yourself. Mute yourselves. How many times should we tell you to mute yourself, young people? Anyway, let's continue. So at a time when they had no king, the Israelites were practicing the system called theocracy. It's a system whereby a deity is seen as what? King over the people, or the ruler of the people. But these people now want to go for a monarchy system. They wanted to have a king who will rule them. They didn't want to have the theocracy system, but want to practice the monarchy system, where they will get kings to rule over them. Now, when this thing was reported to Samuel, Samuel was displeased, and he went to God in prayer. Let's continue. The Lord told him to hearken to the request of the people and give them a king. So God told him, listen to the people, give them the king as they wish. He told Samuel not to feel rejected, because he was not the one who was rejected, but rather it was he, the Lord, who was rejected by the people. Now, you could see clearly how the behavior of Samuel's children also brought another problem in Israel. And what was the problem? The problem was that the people of Israel did no longer want God to be their king. They needed a new king, a human king. And you know what? This caused a whole change of what? Of rulership and system of the people of Israel. Even though having a human king was allowed by God, but God told someone to warn them the consequences of having a human king. Because if they should get a human king, such and such is what the king can do to them. For instance, someone warned them and told them that if you have a king, now the king will control you. The king can take your properties from you. The king can take your children and make them his servants. The king can enslave them. So someone painted the whole picture to be evil, that if they want a king, this is what the king can do to them. But the people still said, no, we still want a king. Give us a king. That is all that we wanted. So God told him, don't worry, give the king to them. Fulfill their wish for them. So you could see that because of Samuel's children, the entire people of Israel now are rejecting God. They are all rejecting God because they think Samuel is old and he will be dying soon. And if Samuel should die, leaving his position to his children, who are so evil, to rule over them, then they are going to have a problem. So therefore, they wanted a king, and they demanded for the king with a strong desire, to the extent that Samuel could no longer hold his peace until God told him to listen to the people. This brings us to the end of the behavior or the sins of Samuel's children. Let's move on. This area, we discussed it last week. Yes, Rosemary, your hand is up.
Sir, sir, what happened to Samuel's children, their son? What happened to them?
They also died. So when you read the story, they also died. When you continue the story, you will find out how they also died.
Okay.
Now let's move on. This particular area, we discussed it last 2 weeks. It also falls under the same, it also falls under Samuel and his sons. That is ways in which parents can fulfill their parental obligations to their children. Let's refresh our minds with this. 1, providing children material needs like food, clothing, and shelter. 2, satisfying their emotional and psychological needs like exhibiting love to them, ensuring that they are well educated according to their ability. 4, ensuring that they are provided with adequate health care. 5, where there is not enough money, making sure they are enrolled with the National Health Insurance Scheme. 6, give the children a good moral and religious education. 7, ensuring that the child grows with good moral values. 8, preventing the child from committing sins. So these are some of the ways parents can fulfill their parental obligations. Also, we also discussed the effect of bad parenting, which also falls under Samuel and his sons. What are some of the effects of bad parenting? The children become truant, skipping school, etc. 2, the children end up in the streets. 3, they drop out of school at an early age. And you guys can even attest to this. Some of you, the friends you completed GHS with, some are not in secondary school, they are in the house pregnant. Have you seen some before? Do you have any? Have you experienced a friend in your community, someone who was in school because of bad parenting, and because of that the person is dropped out from school?
Yes, sir.
Let's continue. 4, some may become drug addicts. They'll begin to use drugs. Again, the girls become pregnant in their teens, making the boys become premature fathers. Again, bad parenting may lead to early death of the children. In addition, it tarnishes the image of the family. In other words, the family loses its credibility. Moreover, loss of respect for the parents. Lastly, children become disrespectful. In other words, become nuisance in the community. Now, the application virtues or the moral lessons of Eli also falls under Samuel. Let's refresh our minds. What lessons can we learn from this? Parents should inculcate in their children the fear of God. 2, parents should train children to acquire good moral values. 3, they should be role models. Disobedience to the Lord's command leads to severe punishments. Parents should be stern on children who go astray. They should not be afraid to reprimand their children. In addition, they should take interest in the affairs of their children. Example, relationships, hobbies, education, and aspirations. The last 2 points, they should reward and encourage good behavior. Parents should be good friends to their wards. These are some of the moral lessons or application virtues that can be derived from the lesson. Now, sample questions for you. You can try your hands on it and send it to me. This is a private test. If you want to do it, I'll be very grateful. Those of you who do it, I'll be waiting for your exercise. Sample question 1. This is a past question which came in the WASI. I want you all to try your hands on it. It says, give an account of the behavior of the sons of Samuel when they were appointed as priests. The part 2, that's the B side or the B part of the question, says, what was the immediate consequence of their misconduct? This brings us to the end of our class. I'll open the floor for 2 questions and then we end today's class. Any question? Rosamond. Rosamond, your question.
Say.
Yes, your question.
Say.
I'm listening.
Say.
I can hear you.
So.
Ask your question. You say you have a question, so ask.
The first one is what was the name of? I said, what is the? Yes. What is the name of Samuel's wife?
You have your Bible with you, right?
Say.
You have your Bible with you. Hello?
Say.
You have your Bible with you.
Yes.
You have a Bible with you. There are some questions
Yes.
there are some questions you ask that does not relate to what you are learning. So if you have a personal question, you can
Say
go
the
and
other
research.
question.
Excuse me, let me address what you just asked. It is not every
Yes.
question. There are some questions you ask at this moment does not relate to what you are studying. 2, you have your Bibles with you. I've given you the quotations. You can read it and find the answer in it. 3, you have the internet. You can use the internet to also find the answer, the answer to the question you're asking. So I think learning today must change. It's not everything you should ask a teacher when you know you can have access to the answer. Do you get the point? So when you're asking the question, make sure you ask the question relating to what you are discussing. If you have any personal question you want to ask that does not relate, then you should make sure you have done your proper research before you ask the question. You don't just say, what's the name of the wife of Samuel? Do you understand what I'm saying?